Hello, and welcome to my introduction to Eve Production Manager, which is an application I've developed over the past 18 months, and which represents about 6 years' experience as a Tech One producer. Just a little about myself. I am Denari, and I've been subscribed to Eve Online for about 9 years, and my production character is SJ Astralana. I've actually just performed a daily update, as I want to walk through the steps, really, without having to wait for all the clicking to occur. However, probably the best feature of EPM is that it's designed to minimum time logged in and clicking, and in fact, I've achieved solid results logged in for on average 10 minutes a day. And by solid results, what I mean is I earn between 1.2 and 1.4 billion ISK an hour for the time I spend, and have made a sustainable average of 6 billion a month profits for well over a year. So in front of us, we see my web application, and the actual tab I'm on is the Refresh API tab. And the first thing I do each time that I log into the game, well, the first thing I do is to deliver my market jobs, deliver my contracts, so that I have full API visibility to all of my assets so that the software can see them. And then I log into the browser, and I click on refresh, and a spinner shows up, and it basically spends a couple of minutes downloading Eve API data. And then the second thing I do is I go to market, and on my quick bar I have everything I buy and everything I sell, and I just click through export, 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 and I've got an Eve API uploader, which basically monitors those and uploads that information to the web service pretty much in real time, so that by the time I'm done clicking on the exports, the exporter's done uploading pricing information. Now, once I've finished my API refresh and my market uploads, the first thing I'm curious about is how is my cash holding in relation to my sales. Basically, if my wallet and my profit are higher than my sales, then I'm well capitalized and I can afford to lower my minimum markup. But if the reverse is true, then especially when things are really busy, or I'm basically buying extremely heavy amounts of minerals, which is actually true right now, we've just gone through a patch, then what happens is I'm undercapitalized, and I respond to that by raising my minimum markup. So looking at today, my wallet and my profit are just slightly below my sales, which is fine. Typically happens just after patch. And so what I do is I go into a configuration screen, and I go to this minimum markup setting, and yesterday it was 5%, which is the lowest I go, and today I just simply bounced to 6. Now, what that does is provides a throttle, a means of limiting spinning minerals for too low money, because if I don't have enough cash basically to replace the materials, then I'm going to run out of cash, I'm going to run out, my production is going to slow down, and if that's going to happen, well, I might as well be selling more profitable items than less. So it's just literally a way of slowing things down and getting on a better footing. Then, after looking at my minimum markup, the next thing I do is I look at this material report, which looks at all the materials that I use for my production, and if any material would be insufficient to do today's production, it would show up as a red hyperlink. And I'll just show real quickly where the red hyperlink would take you, which is literally into just a simple material item edit screen. And what I have in here is a bounce factor. Now, a bounce factor is just simply an inventory multiplier. By default, the software tries to stock your materials to being equal to what would be used for 2 weeks of sales, and that's just the baseline. And over time, as acquiring materials was a little bit too slow, then I basically said, okay, well, I need to bounce these, and some things are faster than others. So these days, my alloy trits are 2.4 times, or stocked at 2.4 times as high a level, and over time, basically these are all my bounce factors. And I still think it's amusing that ZID has never let me down. A year and a half later, I've always been able, ZID always basically comes in quite smoothly. Even Megasite has a bit of a bounce factor. Things that are spiky, they go through sustained increases. Trip power circuits have had its shaky times. Armor plates, basically all of these guys over time have had supply side issues. ZID has been my golden boy. All right, and then after I've sorted my materials, then I basically go through a prioritized list of what to build. The reality is I only have ever had 11 production slots, and it's all I can do to keep them capitalized. Really, it's just inconceivable, really, to use more than that many slots, unless, I don't know, you'd have to be an absolutely massive operation. Anyway, so for instance, today I built some APOCs, large ox, large caps, tesserats, in decreasing order of hourly profit. The reason for that is pretty self-explanatory. And then I went to inbound contracts. Now, when I order materials, when I buy materials, I do range ordering so that I can get better pricing, and I'll talk about that later. And as the materials accumulate in remote stations, they get to a threshold which is configured, and when it gets over that threshold, then I can see them in the inbound contracts list, and I do exactly what it says. I create contracts up to 1 billion units at a time, contract it to Red Frog, and within 24 hours they will deliver it to my factory station. And then outbound contracts, very similar. These are the items that aren't in a hangar at my market sell location and need to be replenished. Typically, this is refilling the hangar even as I continue to have items selling on market. It's just a way of identifying what needs to go to market. The next thing I look at, and it starts to get a little more interesting, is post-sell orders. And this is what I've sold today. And the only real interesting thing about this, I mean, basically when it goes in as a sell order, it goes in as a direct undercut of the current market price, which is fine, and it shows the markup. The only exception to that is if that would be underneath the minimum markup, then the price it get posted at would be above the market price. It would basically be sitting above the crowd, waiting for them to get out of the way before selling my items. And then update sell orders, pretty much the same thing. And Baden here is a pretty good case. My price yesterday was 206.7. It got bounced to 206.8 today because of the minimum markup change, and that's sitting about 7.8 million above the pack. And the reason for that is twofold. One is markup obviously is less than 6%, but the other reason, and I'll jump to it very quickly, is that the Abaddon, because of mineral price increases, is trending up at the rate of 2.29% per week. And what I do is I take that variance at 2.29 and I add it to the 4.2 to make it 6.49. My minimum markup on the Abaddon actually is 6.49%. Or, sorry, 7.49, because I'm at 6%. And I will definitely talk about that later. It's probably the most important feature of the software is to identify an overheated item and park it above the pack, pretty much in anticipation that there's going to be a price spike on the item later. And often it happens, sometimes it doesn't. That's just life. So APOC came down. Basically, these are all my price changes. The price change when it is an undercut is a measured undercut of the market price, and the measure is comes from this configuration setting, undercut percent. And I basically undercut market 10% of the profit right out of the item, and it's literally pushing undercapitalized, pushing smaller scale producers out of the market. It's just being aggressive. I'm not the only one that does it. There's typically 2 or 3 aggressive undercutters in any 24-hour period. The prices tend to come down pretty quickly no matter what I do. So that's what I do. And then same thing on the supply side. I post buy orders, and today was a pretty big order. I don't think there's a lot of people out there that post 880 million TRID orders in a day. And these are my stock levels, and this is pretty much where the success of the software is. For the most part, I basically want my percentage over 50%, and the reason is if it's over 50%, I come in and overcut the range price, and when I get under 50%, then basically I'm falling short, and I start competing with the hub prices directly, which is obviously more expensive. So I basically come in a range price, and I hold it range price pretty much until either the order fills or I get under 50%, and then it becomes more expensive, which obviously you want to avoid. And that shows up on update buy orders. Now, by that measure, if this strategy were unsuccessful, then you would see a majority of these percentages at under 50%. But that's not true. Basically, this is stuff that's been on market for at least a day, often 2 or 3 days, and I'm continuing to pick up these items at very good discounts. Some discounts better than others. But definitely it's the case of low-end minerals. I typically get a 5 to 10% price break by getting the range orders, and they move in definite quantities. It's definitely a valid way of picking up items very affordably. So that's the basic flow. Obviously, you build things, you buy things, you sell things, and the money comes in. And back to the dashboard. In this particular week, this is a rolling 7 dashboard. I've made $1.5 billion at a 9.67% GP. Decent figures, not great. And then I have some more reporting. Item sales report, which defaults to a week period. Tells me what my good sellers are. If you've ever tried to sell Ravens, selling 21 at 8.4% GP, that's a good week. APOC's at almost 8%, also good. Daily sales, just basically the only thing interesting really to me is pretty much how did yesterday go, and pretty much the same thing. Sold some Ravens at 9.6, and it also helps me to spot outliers, look for malfunctions in the software, those sorts of things. And then the actual reports that become interesting and are the item trends. And each item in here has this value added to its minimum markup for a per item minimum markup. And right now we've basically just come through a patch, and kind of interesting. We'll look at the material trends, because Zid spiked heavily, and then it started leveling off, and Mexilon seems like it has a bit more of a sustained steam underneath it. So these two guys right here are the key reason why I add this item trend to the minimum markup. See, the thing is, by definition, if a material is increasing in price, particularly if it's increasing strongly in price, by definition, demand exceeds supply. And if you're an undercapitalized producer, especially if you're an undercapitalized producer, if you don't have large amounts of stocks and you can't survive really supply shortages, what happens is the follow-on effect is you can't build, you can't post to market, and your stock craps out. And it just happens over and over and over in this game. And if you have really strong odds that an item is going to crap out, you don't want to be selling your item down with the crowd. Park it above the crowd. They're going to crap out. And I have had so many instances of 21 APOCs or 63 large Trimarks just basically flying out the door some Sunday afternoon. And often as not, I'll post a second stack that afternoon, and I'll sell most of that one too. And a lot of times, the producers rush to get their stuff back in, and there's this mad scramble. And you see them putting them in dribs and drabs, and 6 here and 7 here, just getting whatever they can in because the price is really good. And by the next weekend, they just haven't recovered yet, and it happens all over again. I had large Trimarks. I made billions on that thing. 3 out of 4 weekends, just crazy. So that's basically the long and short of the software. It's basically about automated decisions. It's about being smart with your supply side, your supply chain, being smart with your pricing, basically being smart with your time. And the whole reason for this video is that I am in the process of publishing this software onto a commercial website as a commercial web application, and I'm interested in selling it on a fee-based basis. And what I would like between now and then is to pick up about 5 reasonably established producers to act as beta testers, and as beta testers, they'll have a fairly extended time of basically providing feedback and using the software for free, and then we'll see how things go. So that's the end of my production, and I just need to figure out how to turn this darn thing off.